this Careers in Peacebuilding series. This series is really designed to help our students and our community understand that peacebuilding is a multifaceted and complex series of actions, and that there are so many people in our community doing extraordinary peacebuilding work, and there are so many opportunities for each of us to enter the stream and to design a life that is not only purposeful but also peaceful. So I am really excited today to welcome my friend, Alapaki Nahale-a. But first, let us offer up a land acknowledgement, acknowledging Hawaii as an indigenous space, whose people, Kanaka Moli, have cultivated this space with love, with care, with thoughtfulness, and in a manner that allows us to enjoy her many bountiful gifts today. And for this, we are truly grateful. Please remember that you who are in the room today can share questions on Q&A. Also, if you're watching via Facebook Live, as many of you are, feel free to input questions there, and Jose will make sure they get to me that way as well. So let me introduce Alapaki Nahale-a, who is the CEO for Global Resiliency Hub at Iole. There they are committed to modeling regenerative governance and showing us how that leads to abundance for people, for the environment, for the aina. Alapaki Nahale-a has spent 30 years serving in the community in a variety of roles, including as director and chairman of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, senior director of community engagement and resources for Kamehameha Schools, executive director of the Hawaiʻi Charter School Network, chairperson of the County of Hawaii Cultural Resources Commission, and member of the County Charter Commission. He is currently one of Hawaii Island Regents for the University of Hawaii, and President Obama also appointed Nahale-a to serve on the Presidential Scholars Commission, where he helped to set up commission policy and select top high school scholars from around the country. So welcome, Paki.
Aloha, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. So I right now am thinking about all of your work at Iole, and I would love for you to begin just by setting up a little bit of context for your work there. Tell us about Iole and your vision for place, project, and community there.
Sure. So Iole is a traditional Ahupua'a in Kohala. Iole is the traditional name, and we recently acquired this parcel from the New Moon Foundation in order to really advance. When we first got it, just generically the principles of sustainability, and in particular to work towards global food issues, energy issues, and global resilience generically. So as we started to engage and listen to Iole, pay attention to the community of Kohala, we really started to investigate what did Iole need? What did this Ahupua'a need? And what kind of contribution could we make? Because at the outset, we wanted to have global impact, act locally, impact globally. And we really landed on this idea that the Ahupua'a system, the way that Native Hawaiians built relationship with their land and with each other in service to that land, was a model that we really needed to return to at a more universal level. And so, yes, we do environmental stewardship projects, and we engage learners of all sorts. We have ag projects, and those are all important in their own right. But what we're really excited about is demonstrating how we bring all those together collectively through a shared governance model, inspired by the Native Hawaiians of this place, and how that can be an example for the world.
Fantastic, and I agree that it can and will. So as you sort of harvest your vision and your spirit and your energy to contribute to this community and to this Ahupua'a? And how have you found that bridging academic experts, Kanaka practitioners, community members, students, government leaders, how has that all contributed to the vision? Why is this connectivity and collaboration valuable?
Well, actually, I would take a step back and I would say that your question is the answer, right? Is that how, if we are to really serve this Ahupua'a and this community, all the different stakeholders that you acknowledge have to work collaboratively. You know, we have too many examples in society where people come in and just do what they do in isolation, in a silo, without taking a holistic look to what the community wants, what the environment needs, what other activities are going on. And so that our recognition that it needed to be collective aligned effort was the inspiration for regenerative governance as our framing. Now, how we do that is another challenge, and it's interesting. I think we take for granted what it takes to bring people together. We just collaborate, have a few meetings, and then, you know, we'll all be aligned. And as you know from your work all over the world, it takes a lot more than that. You have to take time to be present and listen. You have to understand and acknowledge, you know, intergenerational traumas. You have to care about the issues that may not be, you know, the thing that you're most interested in. You know, maybe the people in the community care about these other issues too. And if they're not going to embrace your project unless you look at them holistically. So that's the work we're doing to create a real systemic approach to living at that standard, not as a one-off project, but as the way we manage this Ahupua'a. And it's a heavy lift. When you really think about it, what does it take to do that? It's not a one-time thing. It's a constant evolutionary iterative process to engage all the stakeholders you mentioned in meaningful ways.
So as you are doing that work, you are having to think about sort of long-term sustainability, which means continuously investing your time, your energy, your mana'o, your purpose, your passion. Obviously, it is a community that is rooted in Kanaka and ancestral knowledge. Can you speak a little bit about why it's so important to develop sustainable solutions, environmental solutions that are rooted in ancestral and indigenous practices and knowledge?
Oh, absolutely. You know, one of the statistics that really blows me away, this comes from the Centers for Indigenous Futures, is that 30% of our planet is still managed by indigenous people, but their lands represent 80% of our remaining ecosystem. So the reality is that, you know, there isn't any debate anymore whether or not we are not at the brink of a crisis. We are in crisis, soon to be irreversible if we don't respond. So that data point I shared is that while really the rest of the world was destroying our home, indigenous communities were these stakeholders in the ground holding the line. So we don't have to discover how to be sustainable. We have to remember how to be sustainable. And these indigenous communities have maintained those practices through this dark period. So going back and getting inspiration, not only from what people talk about indigenous knowledge as a past thing, it's a present thing. We just have to bring it into the modern day context at really a governance and systemic level. Indigenous perspectives can't be a check the box after we've designed our project. What does the indigenous community think? They need to be at the front end, really helping us guide and design the processes that help us make the most critical decisions that face us, especially around land use and natural resource use.
Yeah. So it's really important for us to think about process, right? And obviously we want inclusive processes, and we also want to be thoughtful about those who are most impacted and those who have those frontline community solutions too. I wanted to ask you, like, how do you think that Kanaka Maoli practices can inspire people globally to change how they behave in the world? So it's not just a matter of what is just for this project, this purpose, but, in terms of shifting mindset, in order to be healthy and resilient and fruitful globally. Like, what is it about Hawaiian practices in particular?
Well, if I would distill it, to them, its most simple concept, it's having right relationship with your environment. And I think Native Hawaiian worldview and many indigenous worldview, it's that we view our environment as a who, not a what. We treat our land or water, our air, our sea, our trees as family. And once you have that mindset, then you behave differently. And I think that's the thing that indigenous communities and Kanaka Maoli practice can demonstrate to the world. I don't think you have to actually believe the environment is family to consider having more, holding those things more sacred, right? The reality is that if you have a Western extractive mindset, you're going to come to the conclusion that these things are sacred as soon as they're not available anymore, and that's too late. So our hope, to your point, that the hope is that, let's be honest, there are a lot of indigenous people who don't practice those things. So we're talking about practice, not ethnicity, right? But these cultures have maintained practice in relationship to the environments they live in, and so they have knowledge that has not yet been honored, has not yet been codified, replicated. And so if we spend time to sit in reverence to the purpose behind their ceremonies, their protocol, and to really listen, we will see that there is a scientific link to how to be more sustainable on the earth. To the point, and this is the last point I'll make on this question, which is kind of foundational to our brand. This is not about doing with less. These practices are not about we have to sacrifice. The reality is, when you live in that way with the environment, you are abundant beyond imagination, beyond how much dollars are in your bank account, right? The health and well-being, individually, family, community, is lifted because we have streams to walk along, we have clean oceans to swim in, we have mountains to hike. And that's really what I think this worldview and these practices not only save, but restore.
That's an important point, to have an abundance mindset, right? And to think about what is truly of value, and the richness of what we can create for future generations, because I think that we too often work with a deficiency mindset, and we, tell young people, hey, you gotta do with less because we were greedy. Your generation has to sacrifice. But if we can think very positively about the fructifying potential, the beautiful fruitfulness of this endeavor, then I think we can bring more joy into the practices too, and into our relationships, right? So
absolutely.
Let me pause for a second just to invite those of you who are in the room to please share with us where you are joining us from. What is your land? What is your water? And also ask a question of Paki. So please do share that, and we will get to as many of your questions as possible. So let's speak a little bit more to the younger generation, which is what I care about, right? As an educator, I want to think about what we are giving over to our keiki, to our children, to our next generation, and how we are protecting and nourishing future generations as well as this one. Can you speak to what do you think is the most important thing we need to change? And maybe you've already touched upon it, but in order to make sure that future generations are prosperous, and what it is that if you could give one gift to all of our children, what would that be?
So it's a great question. And just most of my career, a lot of years in education, direct service to learners. And I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, but in a different way from a learner context, and that is to create relationship. I think we know the human species, that we are a relationship needy species. We thrive via relationship. And the way that we've been living on the planet has really deteriorated the quality of our relationships. You know, our nuclear families have less time together. We don't do as much activities that give us opportunity to connect at deep, meaningful levels. You know, I don't think I'm an old curmudgeon guy, but you know, we're losing human connection, even with the people that are family, or other things that I don't know what the worth is. And I would say that's similar as we go out, you know, beyond family. What do we really value? I'll tell you an interesting story. I got to go to Mexico for the first time, and I went to Mexico City, and you know, as you know, in the U.S., you're thinking you're gonna get hijacked and mugged, and it's dirty and filthy. And I was walking around Mexico City, you know, one of the largest cities in the world, very urbanized, and went to their main central park. And I was amazed at how clean it was, how much it was basically families enjoying the park together, flying kites, picnicking, laughing with each other, multi-generation families. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I was told a lie, that's healthy, right? And a lot of the places I've been in the US that claim to be prosperous are broken. They're literally broken. You know, you just have to walk around the streets and look in the faces of people and see the trauma. So I mean, it's a long-winded way of saying, I think relationships are broken. So for learners in particular, we need to help them make meaningful connections as early as possible. And those need to be connections they can count on. So adults, they can care and protect them. And getting back to the issue of environment, I found that young kids in particular can create very deep, powerful connection with aina, right? With a mountain, with their surf break, with the moon, and that relationship they can rely on, right? The deeper that they interact and commune with that environmental element, the more they get to know it, and the more it gets to know them, and it's there for them throughout their life. They can count on it. And so I think that's one of the things that the overarching answer to your question is help our young people build relationship, including with their environment. And that becomes a powerful force for them.
Thank you. Beautiful answer. I want us to talk a little bit more about the Ahupua'a system as a whole. I think it's a poorly understood concept, right? People think of it just in terms of land division, like it's just markers on a map, right? And which is a gross oversimplification. And it's really about some of those relationships. It is really about our sense of purpose and connection. Can you speak a little bit more about the Ahupua'a system, what it means to you, and how it can help people reconnect to one another and to aina?
Oh, I absolutely, and I appreciate you setting that stage. I mean, we've kind of dumbed it down. Even in Hawaii, where we use the word all the time, and we kind of brag about how ingenious it was, and we really haven't, dove deep into what it really means and what it took to operate successfully. So, like you said, it's not land division. I mean, yes, it is in some ways, but it's not a magic land division. And Ahupua'a grew and shrank historically based on need, population, right? So the land division itself can move. What made it an actual Ahupua'a is a community that chose to be in sync around that environmental division, right? I think of it as a community of place practitioners. So they know that place, they know the natural resource constraints and opportunities, and they make a deal, right? An unspoken deal to live in balance with that. And Hawaiians were masterful at understanding that balance in a multitude of ways, particularly from observation and other scientific practice. They would taste pond water and they could determine, what was needed, what was lacking. But also, this is the other part I think people, we have so much more to learn, is how do you hold a community accountable to these agreements, right? How do you, the person, up Mauka, how do they not take more trees because they're going to benefit individually while the rest of us suffer? That system of accountability and the feeling of it being abundance is, to me, the magic of Ahupua'a that we want to restore. That people actually have joy from taking less than they need because they know there's abundance. When they go down to the ocean, they're going to have more fish than would be otherwise, right? I want to say this too. This is a process of discovery. We don't pretend to be the experts at what Ahupua'a means. What we're saying is we're committed to building modern day Ahupua'a at ours and learning by doing, being an action research project, by trying things and failing and improving, right? This iterative, and there's never an end. To me, Ahupua'a, there isn't an end. It's a constant commitment to improve, to be in better relationship with place and each other. And if I think about what's happening globally and the conflicts we see everywhere, the extractive approach to environment, this conversation of how do we live together in balance, both with environment and with each other, I can't think of a more important thing that the world needs right now, which for me is why it's fundamentally a peace initiative, right? Because if you can find a way to build community that lives in balance and we trust each other and we're living in abundance, pretty peaceful place, I can imagine.
Yeah, that's someplace I want to be. Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, well, I want to ask you to speak a little bit more about you as a man, as a person, your journey, because, this is a careers and peace building series. As you just pointed out, you are a peace builder, even if you're not naming yourself as such. Obviously, in the work of Ahupua'a nourishment, you are engaging in the work of peace building. So I'd love to think about your journey a little bit for others who might be inspired to undertake journeys of their own. Can you speak a little bit about the efforts that have led you to your current leadership, purpose, path, mindset? And I would love for you to share a little bit about what you've learned and how you've grown from your time, whether it's with Kamehameha, with Laupa Hoi Hoi, or with Hawaiian Home, with the Board of Regents. In all of these spaces, you have no doubt layered new aspects of self to bring you to where you are now. Can you speak a little bit about that journey?
Gosh, I do my best. And that's sweet of you to, call me a peace builder. I feel proud about that. So thank you. I think maybe at a young age, I did have to endure a lot of early childhood traumas that we know have a tendency, if you have a lot of early childhood trauma, it tends to be an indicator of incarceration or lack of education, and there's a lot of negative statistics. But what we've also learned is that there are offsetting positives, right? I also had a lot of really positive experiences in my childhood, from caring adults to learning opportunities. So I think the balance of those two kind of gave me an empathy for people are struggling or have had hardship in their life. But with the support to give me tools to do something about it for myself. And so I think if I look at my career, I just always felt like I have to pay it forward, that and if I see an individual or, an organization or a community that's struggling, I feel like there's a solution, like we can find a way forward if we work together. And early in my career, I had an opportunity. I had a job that I thought was pretty cool. I was like getting paid more than I ever got paid before, and I was like, oh, all right, that's awesome. And then I got an opportunity to do something that I knew was really meaningful. But I was like, I won't name the names, but but I had to make the choice, right? Do I take what society is saying matters, more money, security, or do I go do the thing that I know makes a bigger impact, positive impact to the thing I just said, right? And a friend of mine, I'll out him, Andrew Oki. I was in my early 20s, and he said, Paki, you always take the job that allows you to make the bigger contribution. And I just keep taking his advice, right? And I don't mean you just jump, but you get to a place, you make your contribution, and if you are a contributor, you always have opportunity. So you said, well, maybe there's other folks who want to take similar track. Just the advice, like, go where you can make a contribution. And if you're a contributor, you always have opportunities, and you have to make that decision. Like, okay, is the contribution I can make in this spot still available? Is it going to grow? Or really, have I kind of maxed out what I do well? And do I make room for someone else to come in and I go do something else? And that's, in my career, I've just done that. So the things you've mentioned have all come from that purpose. Like, I felt I could make a bigger contribution where I went than where I was from. And so this last jump to Iole was the same thing. I was at Kamehameha Schools. I had a great job, worked with great people. But Iole just kept calling to me. The opportunity to, I get up. Yeah, if I have a meeting at 7 a.m. and we decide something, we're doing it at 8. Iole, it's right here. It's us, a small team, so we can move and act in ways large organizations can't. And I thought that Iole had a chance, by being real Eleu, strong foundation and values, to be a model of doing and being more than talking. That excited me.
Yeah, that's exciting. Mahalo. So obviously, local cooperation is essential for Iole's success. So can you speak about how community members have reacted to news of Iole and plans for development, especially folks in Kohala, and
Yeah.
or community members participating, and how are schools and youth involved? And, what do you hope in all of that for your beloved community in terms of action and connection that is inspired by and beginning with Iole?
This is and I love the question and the intention behind it, right? That the efforts that are really going to matter going forward are the ones that are truly community connected. And for us, that story is a little mixed right now, because we actually even though we've been on site assessing and helping with some management, we only acquired the site. It's only been in our hands since November. So it's been 3 months. So I was very hesitant to engage community and make commitments when we didn't yet have it. So now that we do, our community engagement efforts are really going to ramp up. But we've been doing, little things. The Kohala High School, we have Kohala High School kids coming up to the site 2 days a week. We host a lot of different learners from a lot of different programs on site, usually for overnight stays, because we have these great overnight facilities. In fact, we have 30 coming right after this. I'm going to go greet and welcome in a new set of learners. And we've tried to contribute at Iole in the activities they're doing. So, Koime Day is important, and the Kohala Reunion is an incredible event. Anyone listening from Kohala, man, you guys, that event is amazing. Where they bring, if you're from Kohala, you can come back to this reunion for anyone from Kohala, and they give you updates on what's going on. So anyway, we're trying to be in service to what Kohala wants to do, and our programs going forward. Well, so from this point on, and this is already happening, we are more interested in building program with community and community partners versus delivering program to community, right? So we want to manage this Ahupua'a in a way that the community can do its best work here. And we're supportive of that and find what areas we can best contribute. Is it fundraising? Is it the fiscal operations, or is it just providing space? The other component, I'm just working this now, is I really want to move as much of the decision-making for the Ahupua'a to some process that has a community component to it, as a community council, or even some pieces that they just get a community council advising, but it could even be some pieces that community is empowered to decide on themselves. So that's the current work that I'm probably most excited about, is how to engage community in an authentic way, not in a here's our slide deck, thank you for coming, but in a let's work together on what our collective aspirations are for Kohala and how Iole can contribute to that.
Thank you. I'm excited for that, and I'd love to come and visit and to bear witness and also share my energy there someday.
Oh, we'd love to have you. If I could also say, and it's important, and I have to remember to say it, our staff are Kohala folks, right? They live here, they raise families here, and I need to honor them, that they're part of this community and their voices matter just like everyone else's. Sometimes I think when community members go into an organization, somehow they're expected to take off their community hat, and so they give us feedback all the time about where Kohala is and what's important, and we do take their lead often on those things. Great.
That is at the heart of community building, right? So that it's non-hierarchical in that sense, and that's really at the heart of the Ahupua'a vision and spirit. I think that that's community building that can be utilized strategically in so many different places, not only for better outcomes, but in order for things to be pono, to be balanced and harmonious and thoughtful and just. So, I really appreciate that you're not just giving lip service to, hey, something we're doing together, but there's a process whereby you can listen deeply, listen carefully, double listening, we call it, right? Where you listen sometimes for the needs and the intentions and the hopes behind the words even. So through all of your service, you've done a lot of service on community boards as chairperson of the County of Hawaiian Cultural Resources Commission, member of the County Charter Commission, board member of the Boys and Girls Club of the of Hawaii Island, and board member of the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation. What have been the most important takeaways about, how to build community with intention and with grace and with social justice in mind?
It's a really heavy question. I think for anyone who has engaged community in a, for any significant time, not just a project you get in and out, right? But I think my big takeaways are, number one, it's not for the faint-hearted. That if you want to serve community, you got to meet them where they're at. And you got to pay for the sins of your predecessors, right? Which Covey says in his book, you got to pay the trust tax. because the 17 people before you looked and sounded the same way you did, and they screwed community. And you can't expect community to just trust you. You have to take the time to build a relationship, and you know, they sometimes say not nice things, and you're gonna fold as soon as somebody questions your integrity or calls you a name. This is not the right business for you. You have to hold care and empathy and good intention through those things, and that's hard. That's hard. And I'd also say, what makes that easier is if you really believe community is an asset. That you're not just there to check the box so that you can go do what you want, right? That you have to actually show up believing that the community might be the most important power or force for what you want to accomplish, but then you gotta trust them. You gotta listen, you know, not just think you're smarter than. I'll add this. People need to think more broadly about what we mean by community. Well, it's not the guys that chose to show up to your, you know, evening program. That's not community. It's part of a community, but there's a whole bunch you didn't meet. It's not the ones that can fill out a survey that you send to their house, right? It's also not all the folks walking on two legs, right? Community includes the animals and the plants and the rivers and the streams. Like community, we gotta be broader when we think about engaging community. And so we have to have more rigor about that process and stop shortchanging it. I like the point you made about the time, right? And time is not just duration, right? It's deepening relationship, right? That every engagement is a chance to build deeper relationship and deeper understanding of each other. So a lot of the stuff we do at Iole when we initially bring folks in or meet them is that we start relationship building right out the bat. You know, who's your aina? You know, who's your kairovai? What kupuna are you bringing for a conversation today? And it just changes the energy in the room when people start thinking about our collective communities.
Nice. I like that a lot. I want to make sure that we have room for the questions of those who are with us today. Even though many will be watching the recording, and for those of you who want to share this conversation with others, please know that you can watch it on our YouTube channel, along with many other conversations at the Matsunaga Institute website. But I just want to close with a deep bow of gratitude, with big mahalo, and ask you to just kind of think about and share your definition of peace and justice. Kind of close with that vision and articulation.
It's one of those words, it's kind of impossible to define, right? You have to be open to everyone's perceptions. I think my answer kind of speaks to that is, so I have this tattoo on my, it's namaste, right? The spirit in me sees and honors the spirit in you. And I think that's very, very similar to what aloha means to me. Being face to face, really exchanging breath and all the ancestry, all the mokua and community that come with that breath. So for me, peace is being able to stand in present with another person, and whether or not we agree, just honor not just what's standing in front of us, but all that's standing behind that person. I think this is one of my things I've been pushing for a while, not successfully, but just been haunting me in my back of my brain. How many concepts are really about environmental condition, right? Like I think peace is achieved through, like I mentioned earlier, like healthy environments. And so, yeah, I think we have what is peace, the lack of war in a place, or do I feel peaceful? But there's a component of what does it take for an environment to be peace-inducing, so that what I described, my definition of peace, like what does the environment look like? What do the processes look like? What do the traditions and ceremonies look like that actually encourage that time and presence to really be with someone, face to face and breathe like that? Not the greatest answer I'm sure you'll ever get on the show, but
that's a beautiful answer. That's a beautiful answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we define peace very, very broadly, and there are as many definitions as there are places to enter the stream to be bathed. But I think that your definition honors who you are as a man, the work that you're doing, and is one that resonates with many of us here who are listening. So we have here some participants who have shared their place. We have folks from Kapahulu, Iole in Kohala, Kaloko and Kona, New Jersey. We have Jen from Leahi, Kanoe from Ola'a. We have Wailupe. Beautiful. And I have a couple of questions here, 3 that I'd like to share and have you respond to. Debbie asked, in what ways are you reaching the youth of the Indigenous community, especially with so many Indigenous families reportedly leaving the islands due to the high cost of living?
Yeah, it's really a two-part question. So, we're engaged with the high school and ramping up programs directly in Kohala. We're working with Kamehameha Schools and of our partners to do a lot of not only engagement here. One of the cool ones coming up is like an Indigenous Culinary Institute, but to not have to be physically present at Iole all the time to get the benefits. So having like a digital platform and creating more digitally accessible opportunities. So there's a range of things. I wouldn't say it's limited to Indigenous youth. I would say more inspired by indigeneity, but available to all who value that. The second half of the question, which I think it's important to know, appreciate them linking it, because we like to forget in the education community that our learners come to us in an environment of their own, and housing insecurity is one of the worst things for a learner to be experiencing, right, in the classroom. If they're not sure if they're going to get evicted, right, or if the water is going to be on, or if their parents are going to have to move to another state, it's hard for them to care about, the quadratic equation in my math class. So I think why I'm calling that out is one of the things I can see learners and educators really connecting with at Iole is how the environment we're talking about and how living in right relationship and creating safety and security helps learners be more engaged. Like, it's interesting how much the youth are happy. So at Iole, by 2030, we will be water, energy, and food self-sufficient. We'll grow everything, all the water you drink, food you eat, from toilets flushing, all produced at Iole. So the kids that come here get really excited about, really? Is that possible? It's a nice way to get them engaged in this issue of sustainable practice. And why I tie that to the question is, it makes them feel like, we can build affordability in Hawaii, right? The reason why we set that goal for Iole is not because that's, Ahupua'a, we're not supposed to be sustainable, like meaning we can serve our own. It's supposed to be abundant. We create more than we need because then we can trade and share. That's what for me, the Ahupua'a is supposed to be, produce more than we need. We're only doing that so we can prove it can be done. Because if we do it, then Kohala can do it. If Kohala can do it, Hawaii Island can do it. If Hawaii Island can do it, the state of Hawaii can do it. It's just a decision. There's no magic sauce. We have to just choose to live that way. Sorry, I got platformed there a bit.
We appreciate your passion. So Jen asks, I'd love to hear more about the phrase you used earlier, to act locally and impact globally. What is the first story that you remember where this was true in your life?
Oh, okay. This came up to me. Just so I'll share it. When I was a young principal, really like trying to figure the job out, we were getting really good results. And, I wasn't like a classically trained principal. And so I got invited to this conference on the East Coast to kind of share about what they brought together folks from all over the country. And in particular, this component of helping kids show up for kindergarten ready and then keeping them on track. So what I knew in my heart, but I was afraid to say, one of the persons in the group said on their own, we were standing up doing introductions of ourselves. And everyone was saying, oh, my name is this, and it's my title, and this is my program. Okay. This older Hispanic gentleman stood up. I'll never forget him. Really well dressed. He had a hat on. And he started telling a story. And everybody was like mesmerized. Like, what is he? We're introducing. Why is he telling a story? And I'll get to the end. What he basically said is, when his granddaughter comes home from school, he asks her, oh, how was your day? What did you learn today? Does your teacher love you? And everybody's kind of like uncomfortable. Like, well, you can't, is that the standard in a school? Like, can you ask that? They're just kind of, and I thought, that's what we do. He said it. He said, it's okay. He said it out loud. Like, that's what we do. We love kids. And then they do better in school. He's like, I don't have a magic sauce. There wasn't a magic curriculum. I mean, we love them. If they're hungry, we feed them. They need a hug, we hug them. They need conflict resolution, we do that. And they start learning. So why I say that's global impact, it's like a young Hawaiian kid in an immersion school in Keaukaha was getting good results by loving kids, because that gentleman gave me the permission to own that. And in the spaces I was in, around the country or in presentations, I would just own that. How'd you get those reading scores? We love the kids. You might not like the answer, but that's what we did.
I love the answer. Mahalo. So we have another question. This is an amazing way of community building. Have you been able to implement sort of Zoom type platforms or digital methods to build relationships? How have you used technology, especially recently, to engage in relationship building, or is that not possible?
Well, like I said earlier, we're just actually now ready to go out to community because we've been doing all the, assessing and acquiring exercise. I have been more focused on getting in person and going out and bringing folks to the site, but it's a good question. I think that it's not my ideal connecting point, but I think a lot of people, for a variety of reasons, including, post-COVID, folks have gotten more comfortable with it. I think it's a technology we need to add to our community engagement opportunities so that folks who just can't get away, or maybe they don't like going into public settings, like we should include those folks too. So thanks for the reminder. I will, with that, Debbie, thanks, Debbie. I'll think about that, the best way to do that.
Thank you. And please do, Paki, read some of the comments. People are offering mahalos and compliments. Paki, I want to ask you, what is the hardest part of what you are trying to do? What has been the greatest challenge? I know that there has been some struggle and that not everything goes smoothly, and you have to up your commitment and you have to make tough decisions. Can you speak a little bit about the storms you have faced so that we know that this work requires that we harness our most courageous selves?
Oh, today in particular, that is I'm going to answer this question authentically, not just for myself, but I'm sure we have leaders on this call, and you're one of them. So I'll try to give voice to the people who choose to do this work. It can be very lonely. There are some issues for legal reasons, or, that you have to handle privately. You have to carry some of these burdens on your own. The demands can often be 24/7, 365, particularly like where we're in now, this startup mode. And that can be hard for, friends and family to understand. We're gonna go get together on Friday night. I can't, I got community meeting, so that's, not only is it lonely, but I think it can be lonely. Sometimes you can feel like you're being forced to choose, and a lot of folks over the years have told me, oh, no, it's a time management thing, or there's a, and I think that I get a little frustrated with that, because I think it always tends to come from people who aren't doing the work. And so I kind of want to stand up for the folks who, and I appreciate the question. Sometimes you have to make the hard call. Sometimes the right thing to do is to change out someone who's been there a long time. That if you're the one that makes or something is going on for a long time in a place, or even though folks know that change has to be made, nobody wants to do it. So leadership is doing the hard things that is right for the purpose you're trying to achieve, and then you have to deal with the backlash of that. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to be depressing, but I think I have so much love and aloha for the warriors in our community who've chosen to do this work, sometimes at personal cost. So, but I also like what you said, you have to believe in what you're trying to achieve. And you have to believe that when you get there, that there's going to be a difference that was worth the cost. Because then we can show people what's possible. And then the more folks might join the lift, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a society that's pretty jaded right now. And so they're looking for things to really believe in. So those of you who getting through the hardest times to be able to give this is, you should believe in this, it's worth it. If you come contribute here, we're not gonna let you down. We're not gonna waste your money. We're not gonna waste your time. We're not gonna go back on what we said. We're gonna have integrity.
Nice. All right, it's time for a flash round of questions. Are you ready?
Shoots.
Right on. Okay, so what is one of your favorite places on the Ahupua'a, a place where you've stood, a place that you treasure? Describe it to us.
Keaweli Bay at the bottom of our Ahupua'a. It's breathtakingly beautiful. You can see Maui. Kamehameha's canoe landing is still there. It's personal canoe landing. Community fishes and surfs down there. And if you just peek around the corner, you can look down the Hamakua coast. So it's odd because folks think of Kohala as north, but you can actually see down towards Hilo, which is really amazing to me since I'm a Hilo boy.
Nice. What is one thing that you are excited about growing?
Like we said, the community engagement and participation and ownership, that's really exciting to me. And we've purposely chosen to focus on encouraging groups to come and do their meetings and retreats here that serve community, right? It's kind of in line with what we do, but also they're just, doing healthcare in high-risk populations, or they're doing work with traumatized youth, right? I just want more and more of those organizations to give them this safe place and this nurturing place so that they can do their best work. And then we can feel like we contributed to that work too. I love that. And they bring so much positive, like besides the money they bring helps us steward this Ahupua'a, but they bring so much mana and hope and aloha. It's magic.
Nice. A leader and who has inspired you, or someone who you tried to emulate, someone who moves you?
I would say Alapaki Nahale-a. She just, to me, so she's like this environment I'm talking about creating of accountability and these other things too. Like she creates that wherever she goes. Like wherever Ahupua'a goes, she just manifests that around herself. And I think that all that, the learners that she served and the cultural practice that she's elevated and, the Ike Ohana that she's modeled, all amazing. But just to be for me, to be a model of like, to just be such a powerful force of all these values that it just emanates from you. Like she could be in New York City and she's creating her own, Hawaiian environment. Awesome.
Awesome. What can we do to support you in your efforts?
Well, being invited to talk is awesome. I love that people are getting excited about Iole. This might seem odd, but one of the pressures I didn't talk about earlier is pace. Our society is very wedded to like deliverables, right? And ROI. And I think a lot of this work, it takes a long time, especially we talked about earlier, like how to really build meaningful relationship with community, how to really create systems that help us build trust with each other. So one of the things we can do is honor the pace some of this work takes, like peace building. There isn't like a pill you take and we got there, right? It takes time. So I think help lifting up that measure, that mantra, because that's important for philanthropists to hear and policymakers to hear, that expectations have to be measured over time. And then the other thing I would say, my last one is, we talk about expanding the ohana of Iole, and we're going to come up with a kind of a process where folks can like, oh yeah, I want to belong, and here's what I'm agreeing to be part of the ohana Iole. So I'd love folks to, when those opportunities come out, see if they're interested in joining the ohana and being part of this thing we're doing.
Sounds great. Well, any lasting words before we close? Any final thoughts?
The older I get, I realize how precious time is, and that people, that's the most valuable thing they can give you, is their time and presence. And so I'm just so honored for all of you that have given your time here, to you, Maya and Jose. Thank you for having me, and all the time you give to set this up. I scrolled through your guys' photos, and I wish I had time to talk about each of your stories, but just know that I see you and I appreciate you being here with us, and I just honor you and the work you're doing. I hope we get a chance to meet. You're all invited to Iole, so I hope you get a chance to come visit us and we can meet face to face.
Mahalo for those beautiful ideas, for your stories, for your presence, for that invitation, and we have so much aloha for you, and look forward to seeing how all of this bears fruit in a patient way.
I'm urgently patient.
Yeah, we will look forward to seeing all of this bounty, this growth, and this peace building. So thank you all for your presence here, and we hope that we see you at our next conversation about careers in peace building or social justice, or the many things that we talk about. Mahalo again, Jose, for making these events possible, and to our community for your steady presence and contribution. See you next time. Aloha.
Aloha.